Hey, what's good, everyone? Twisted here with Open Sorcery, and today I want to go ahead and talk about Numismatomancy. Now, while that goes ahead and sounds like quite a mouthful, generally speaking, that's all about divination by use of coins. Now, when you think of divination using coins, you may go ahead and think about the more popular I Ching and the Book of Changes, and that Eastern, particularly Chinese, form of divination that is practiced quite a bit in the modern day. And that has been previously discussed between Devi and I, my fellow co-host and I, on a previous instance of the Open Sorcery, and I will go ahead and provide a link to that discussion where that particular manner of divination using coins and such is utilized. I'll put that in the description. But in terms of just general coin divination, I figured might as well go ahead and talk about it. Actually, when I was going ahead and brainstorming, alright, what's a topic that could be covered and discussed and shared previously, I happened to go ahead and, while having that brainstorming session with myself earlier, going ahead and sorting out coins and quarters and all that sort of thing. In particular, I went ahead and grabbed about 5 quarters or so out of my pocket that I had as change and was putting it with the rest of the coins that I got, sitting around here, put it into a particular container that I have for them. And it was about 125 in its value. And this, in terms of the numbering of the ordering of the Open Sorcery, weekly Wednesday drops, what have you, happens to be 125 as well. So in terms of all of that, it just happened to click, what? Why not go ahead and talk about coins and flipping coins and using it as a means of divination? And it seems so simple in terms of something that people do as a sort of superstitious sort of thing or just for fun and games and all that. But, it being a legitimate manner of divination unto itself. So that's just something that clicked for me and figured might as well go ahead and look into a little bit more so and go ahead and provide such a method to you, very simple and what have you. And also, funny enough, I happen to go ahead and have a tarot card of the day drawn for myself every day, and today's happened to be the 10 of Pentacles, or conversely known as the 10 of Coins. So that just seemed like some pretty interesting correlations and what have you, coincidences, synchronicity, whatever you believe it may having to have been, but just happened to go ahead and that was the basis, the origin story for me covering Numismatomancy. Now, in terms of getting into, flipping coins, right? Generally speaking, do so for fun. You may see it being done at big sporting events like the Super Bowl or other regular American football games or, other sort of activities. Or you could think of, say, the character Two-Face from the classic Batman and DC comics, different sorts of, publications, or depicted in the film The Dark Knight from 2008. But, flipping coins has been used in a manner of divination for quite some time. Now, before I get into a sort of general history of coins in of themselves and what have you, when it comes to Numismatomancy, this, in terms of, say, a categorization of divination, this is what's considered as a sortilege, or conversely, cleromancy. Now, if you're unaware of what that term means, that means that it is the type of divination that consists of casting of lots or sorts, and it can be with sticks, stones, bones, beans, coins, or whatever other item, and all of that. And modern playing cards and board games develop from this type of divination, and all that. And when you think of, using items and playing cards for going ahead and doing divination, obviously the most popular manner of that nowadays is tarot and all of that sort of thing within the the sphere of magic, what have you. So in terms of that sort of classification of it being a sortilege, let's go ahead and get into Numismatomancy in of itself. So as stated already, Numismatomancy is a form of divination that predicts the future by use of coins, but in terms of its etymology, in the origin of what the term means, the Greek word nomisma happens to be coin, and also manteia happens to be prophecy. So, a lot of different manners of divination happen to have that suffix of omancy, and it coming from that term manteia, what have you, including this one. So, going ahead and delving more so into a brief summary of a history. This coming from the website occultworld.com, what have you. And I can provide a link in the description for those who wish to go ahead and read or source that for themselves and what have you, along with a particularly recommended manner of doing coin divination on that webpage as well, but not going to utilize that for this, just going to keep it way more simple, what have you. But in terms of a general history, around 700 BC, the Lydians produced the first coins, which were made of electrum, a natural alloy of gold and silver. At first, they were crude bean-shaped lumps with official symbols stamped on them. By 550 BC, coins had spread to all the major trading centers of the world, including Spain, Gaul, and Britain. Peasants, even as late as the Middle Ages, handled coins only very rarely, so coins themselves became objects of almost mystical reverence. Images of rulers and gods were stamped on them to encourage the people to associate the virtues of the gods with those of their kings. Alexander the Great had coins minted with his image and those of the gods of each country he conquered. Many of the Roman emperors, such as Augustus, Caligula, Claudius, and Nero, were deified by their subjects, and their different images on the coins became objects of reverence, especially in distant provinces such as Britain. And moving on to the next paragraph. In ancient Greece and Rome, coins were associated with both birth and death and were placed inside a sash bound to a newborn child's abdomen to prevent the umbilical hernias. These coins were also intended to serve as the start of the child's wealth, and so parents would give coins of the highest value that they could afford. The Romans placed coins, often the same coins given to the child at birth, under a dead person's tongue and in hands to allow the shade to pay Chiron, the ferryman of passage across the river Styx, to the gates of the underworld. This custom persisted until long after the end of the Roman Empire. So, you have a sort of brief history. There has always been a mystical sort of thing with coinage attributed to it in some way, shape, or form. As with, pretty much many things or everything, but those are the particular background for that. And in terms of the modern day, right, and the use of, we have Numismatomancy that we're going ahead and talking about, but let me go ahead and see if I'm pronouncing this correctly. Numismatics, in of itself, is more so of the study or collection of currency, including coins, tokens, paper money, metals, and related objects. So, numismatomancy is more so divination manner of it, and numismatics is the general study of or collection of currency, and what have you. Now, I'm not going to go ahead and get anything about numismatics in of itself, as beyond the scope of this, and not necessarily a particularly magically or esoteric, study or practice in of itself. It can be, of course, and I will go ahead and say that in that sort of light, if you want to learn more so about the manner of currency and its more so occult etymology, I recommend going ahead and watching or listening to videos by Jordan Maxwell, the late great sort of figure who went ahead and broke down different esoteric things in relation to a variety of subjects, what have you, which includes the oceanic and maritime etymology of not only currency, but court proceedings and more in a particular playlist I'll provide in the description, and what have you. And once again, a variety of other magical and occult sort of subject matter across his illustrious career. But anyways, when it comes to actually going ahead and performing numismatomancy or coin divination, just pretty much very simply, all you gotta do really is go ahead and pick a coin of some sort, whether it's a quarter, dime, nickel, half dollar, a golden dollar, what have you, a token from some sort of arcade, a penny, whatever you happen to go ahead and find laying around, and you go ahead and you just flip it as so, or in terms of whether you want to do an air flip, there's also, which is my personal preferred method, of going ahead and finding some sort of container where it can go ahead and move about freely, and go ahead and shake it up, what have you, for as long as you deem appropriate, and then going ahead and, putting it down, and if it has a lid, opening up that lid and seeing what the result is, right? So I prefer that simply just because I do not necessarily like having to flip a coin and it potentially going ahead and falling somewhere, going to have to pick it up and all that sort of thing. But whatever situation calls for, you feel more so appropriate. So whether you're just using your hand or using a container to rattle in, then go ahead and simply think about your intention. What is it you want to go ahead and do with that sort of divination, right? What are you trying to figure out? Asking yourself the question of, do I want to go ahead and do something or do I not want to do it? For example, right? And in that sort of case, whatever it may be, you can go ahead and have heads for yes or tails for no. Or if it's something between two options as opposed to a yes or no question, you can have heads for option 1 or tails for number 2. So once again, in terms of a simple either or yes or no question, heads for yes or option 1, tails for no or option 2. And if you want more than just one sort of casting of this to get an answer, if you feel like you need to do multiple sort of castings, what have you, you can go ahead and expand up to 3 times, 5 times, 7 times, 9 times, and so on. Yet you should always go ahead and look to keep it as an odd number in order to go ahead and get a definitive result out of however many times you do decide to flip it. So yes, alongside that, I'm going to go ahead and offer the idea of, if you want to have a more likely successful manner of divination by flipping coins and casting the coins, what have you, I recommend going ahead and having them charged. And there's a variety of different ways you can go ahead and charge different objects for divinatory or other purposes, but me in particular, I like going ahead and charging coins by way of using different entities to help me and assist me in these sorts of manners, doing invocations, what have you. So in that sort of manner, for charging coins or having different entities oversee your divinatory sessions, there are some archangels that you can call upon to assist you in these endeavors. And first I'm going to go ahead and start out, if you've heard other videos or know the theme of the channel of itself, with good old Archangel Uriel, who happens to go ahead and is rather helpful, generally in instances of divination and all that sort of thing. And, alongside Archangel Uriel, I'm going to go ahead and mention as an aside that, there are several planetary archetypes that, have expressions as angelic beings or other, titled entities or deities that aren't necessarily angelic, that are optimal for numismatomancy and are associated with coinage and currency in of themselves, you can say. And those planetary archetypes would be Jupiterian, or, associated with the planet Jupiter, Neptunian, or associated with the planet Neptune, or Plutonian, associated with the planet Pluto, and all that sort of thing. And in terms of Plutonian, right, when I was going ahead and putting down my notes and kind of just like figuring it all out, I was actually discussing with my co-host Devi at the time, and bringing up the particular sort of archetypes for the planets and all that sort of thing. And in terms of discussing with her about Plutonian archetypes in particular, she went ahead and stated that each decision that is made concerns life, death, and rebirth, which is what Pluto is all about, and that includes in regards to coins and what have you. And when it comes to Neptunian, as was stated earlier, when we were talking about, the etymology of, currency and all that sort of thing that I recommend you go and listen to Jordan Maxwell's videos and discussions about. That's, Neptune has to do with the waters. It has to do with things all having to do with aquatic things, with maritime things, what have you. And currency, so current sea, when it comes to the flow of coins in of itself, what have you. So all of that sort of thing aligns with and happens to go ahead and work with it. So in giving that sort of preface with my continued list of beings that can be of assistance for you when employing a manner of coin flipping to charge and or oversee this task. The other archangels aside from Uriel, who I can go ahead and recommend, are Raziel, who is associated with the spirit of Hokmah on the Kabbalistic tree of life. The spirit of Hokmah is more so Neptunian, what have you, in nature, and now Raziel being associated with that. So yes, there's another one happens to be Zadkiel, who is rather Jupiterian in their affinities, in being associated with the spirit of Jupiter on the Kabbalistic tree of life. And then we have Asariel, who happens to be Jupiterian and Neptunian, not necessarily associated with the Kabbalistic tree of life system, but is we've actually discussed him before, as well as the other one I'm going to go ahead and recommend right now, Azrael, who is more so the Plutonian sort. So in regards to all of them, right, they are archangels that can be helpful in overseeing and assisting and charging the coins that you go ahead and utilize, as well as, once again, initially mentioned, Uriel. And for an example of a non-angelic deity that you could call upon, there happens to be Benzaiten, who I've previously mentioned in different discussions and topics as a Shinto kami and a Buddhist goddess who's associated and governs over flow and all things associated with it. So once again, think about that water, aquatic and maritime etymology in relation with the term currency and what have you. So helping to govern over that. Plus they have a particular affinity with, money and different iterations and physical expressions of it as well. So yes, in regards to Uriel, Azrael, and Sariel, and that we have had individual sorts of, discussions or individual instances of talking about them on the Open Sorcery. I'll provide links to those sorts of videos below in the description, as well as an article via way of Mythopedia for Benzaiten, for those unfamiliar with them. But yes, in terms of the subject, we've pretty much gone ahead and mostly covered what I want to, with this one last point I want to go ahead and mention, wrapping it up, being that a couple books for further reading, if you're interested more so in coin divination in general, using pocket change or going ahead and whatever sort of tokens or whatever sort of coinage they happen to have laying around, there is 2 books I can go ahead and recommend to further educate oneself on it. The first is Coin Divination, Pocket Fortune Teller by Raymond Buckland, and Book of Ordinary Oracles. Use pocket change, popsicle sticks, a TV remote, this book, and more to predict the future and answer your questions by Lon Milo Duquette. And for both of these right here, I will provide links in the description to either Goodreads or an Amazon affiliate link, whichever seems appropriate at the time. But yes, so I pretty much have gone ahead and covered all that I want to in discussing coin divination, also known as Numismatomancy. Once again, seems like quite a mouthful, but, practice it a few times and, you'll probably get the hang of it and saying it. I know it took me a little bit to go ahead and get the hang of saying it myself. But yes, once again, this has been Twisted with Open Sorcery, and stay frosty, Neguses. Peace.